Have you ever heard the sound of freedom? Have you ever heard the sound of freedom?
You're listening to The Flip Side with Noah Filipiak, connecting the reality of the gospel to the grit of life. You can support the podcast and pick up some sweet Flipside swag at www.patreon.com/Noah Filipiak.
Welcome to the Flip Side podcast. We are doing something new today, a little hybrid episode of the Flip Side plus a Beyond the Battle testimony. I'm here with my good friend Nate from Beyond the Battle. What's up, Nate? How's it going today?
Hey, what's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to have you. So Nate and I know each other well. Nate's done a 7-week group with Beyond the Battle. He's been in the alumni community for several years now. We got to hang out on a retreat, and I've just loved seeing what God has done in your life, Nate. So I'm going to kick it over to you. Why don't you just start with really whatever you want to share with our audience of where you have been, where you are now, and kind of what God has done through that process.
I was born in a family that went to church. So my parents were, as far as I know, both born again Christians from the time I was born. And my dad worked in sales, so my dad was often gone. I think that for me, I did not grow up in a home where healthy family dynamics or healthy, especially man to boy emotions didn't really have that. And so we moved down to south central Pennsylvania when I was 15. So that was it was a big move for me because we left everybody that we knew and we moved south with my dad's job. Of course, his work had invested so much in him that he was traveling, he was often gone for days at a time. And so I tried, to get going to college, and I didn't date much in college, but I did date some. I had no experience. Both of the girls that I dated in college broke up with me, and I kind of migrated more towards just like the prodigal son, just like out partying, just trying to make myself feel better, trying to because when I was with all my party friends, I felt important. And it wasn't long after I moved back from college, I'm guessing it was about 9 months. I was out with my friends one night and I didn't know it at the time, but I met my wife, and we were literally at a bar, just like we were all drinking and having a good time. And so I drug the hurts that I had and the unmet needs from childhood right into my marriage. And, looking back, it's like blatantly obvious, but as a young married man, and my wing night and beer night was it was important. So, and that was something that really bothered my wife. As a young mother, as a young wife, she felt that she wasn't having her needs met. And for me, I looked at my wife as though she was sort of like some sort of doll for me to get happiness from. Then I joined in 2007, I joined the Pennsylvania Air Force National Guard against my wife's wishes. But it was my wife and I had no money. We had 2 children. It was a decision I made because I remember seeing my brother come home in his uniform. And I remember thinking to myself that if I had a uniform like that people would respect me. I got a job working at the same place about an hour from my house, but I had to sign up for 6 years. So I signed up for 6 years, and those 6 years were some of the hardest 6 years of our marriage. I was constantly traveling. I literally got to see like all over the world, and I wanted that. And at one point, my wife and I had a very hard conversation where I came home from work and I just said, I just really don't want to be married. I don't want to be, because I wanted to be free of this little farming town. I'd grown up on the farm. I had never seen a lot of the things I saw in the military, I'd never seen before. And so I think it was 2015, I got out of the military. September 2014, I got out of the military. April of 2015, so 6 months later, I lost my leg, most of my left leg, in a tragic motorcycle accident. I still go to the gym. I'm still very active. But I started noticing like the slow decline that was happening in my life was exacerbated by the loss of my limb. And when I say slow decline, I say like emotional and mental. So 2015, I was just going about life like every other guy. Sex made me feel good. Just I was constantly groping at my wife. If she'd be cooking dinner, I'd be touching her. And so I can't think of the exact time frame, but it was right around COVID, probably around the end of COVID. Things in between my wife and I mean, she was changing so much. And it was like I emotionally was staying the same because the same wounds that I had from childhood, like they weren't just healing on their own. And then probably one of the worst things in our marriage happened where my wife ended up being offered a part-time job. It was 1 day a week. She went from we just need you 1 day to we need you 4 days. And the 4 days were Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So we hardly had any time to spend with each other. Things were just declining between us. Like we were becoming like roommates. And so for me, I sought comfortable. I sought comfort in alcohol and porn. And I think it was 2023 when my wife was working, and I spent hours into the night searching for pornography on my phone, and I was actually like live chatting with pornographic models. And after that, I was just overcome with guilt, and God really started pushing me to heal. Like he was like, "Look, like I knew that was way farther than I had ever been in my life, and I feel like God was really putting it on me to." And I've told the story before, and I just feel like God was really putting it on me. So I started praying, Lord, I just pray that you would bring me friends, that you would bring me connection, that you would bring me men that know how to work through this. But then I heard I heard you on a podcast. I heard Noah on a podcast, Relationship Prescriptions, I think it was, with
Yeah,
Dr.
yeah,
Dr. Carroll. And
that's
I was
right.
like, and just something in me, I felt the Holy Spirit or intuition. I don't know. I mean, it just, I was like, dude, that right there, this guy, like, this is what I need. Like, I need genuine connection. I need a group of guys. I remember you talking about the truth. And I'm like, yeah, the truth. Like, what is the truth in my life? Like, I've been married for 20 years and I still feel like I haven't told my wife the truth. And so I think the rest, goes, I don't want to say it goes without saying. I think that I joined Beyond the Battle. I talked to you in either December or January, and then I joined Beyond the Battle. Actually, it'll be 2 years in a week and a half that I've been a part of Beyond the Battle.
Nice.
And it changed my life, and I ended up going to other men's groups too. And really, I just did that for the additional connection because I can't remember the name of the podcast, but they talk about how the opposite of addiction is connection. And that hit me. I was like, oh my word, that's what I need is I need connection. I need a group of guys that I can sit and I can tell my truth to. And at the same time, you're telling your truth to other men, like you're hearing yourself say that. And so it's pretty rare now, 2 years later, that I'll venture down the road of acting out because unfortunately relapses are a thing and that's what that's another thing I wanted to say, like we'll all fall. I don't know what the verse is, but it talks about how a man who falls into a pit, and he has friends that come and help him out of that pit, right? And that verse is so applicable to what we're doing in Beyond the Battle, because every day, almost every single day of my life, today I've connected with two different Beyond the Battle guys, and if you count Noah, that's three. You know, does Noah count as a Beyond the Battle guy? Okay, Noah's three. So all that being said is it's definitely not the golden apple that you picture. A lot of guys come to these groups thinking, how can I come to the group in January and be better by February?
Right.
It can be discouraging when guys are like, well, I'm not better yet. But really the better is being connected. And when you fall, when you decide to go down those same pathways that you go down, it doesn't matter if it's the first time or the 150,000th time. You are always left empty, sad, depressed, lonely. And for me, wishing, man, I really wish I could talk to somebody and pray with somebody about this. Whereas 10 or 15 years ago, I had nobody.
Mm,
And now it's just like I just have to pick who I'm gonna
nice.
talk to. So
Love it. Thanks, Nate. A lot of guys come to a group like Beyond the Battle or a book. They pick up the book and they're struggling with pornography and going, or the way I would even say the church approaches the subject, right? Like, let's get rid of the behavior. And so we often think in the church about accountability groups, get rid of the behavior, stop looking at porn. Certainly, that's really important. And that's a big part of what we do. And we celebrate that like crazy when it happens. Through your story, the way you talked about early on in your marriage, these ideas that you had about what your wife was. And sort of in the book, I write about the objectification of our wives, and that was something that I did in my marriage. There's
mm,
these ways that I call it the porn mindset. The same way we think about porn, it doesn't just stay compartmentalized to porn, right? It's like we're
right.
thinking about our wife that way. We're thinking about other women that way. I guess my question for you is, how have you experienced those? Maybe if you want to name, you already did name some of those deeper layers. And I want guys to hear that this is about not just the behavior of porn, but the deeper layers beneath it that affect, I mean, all of our lives. But then I think the good news is you've experienced and I've experienced, and I do count as a Beyond the Battle guy, just for the record, because I have issues. Okay, so if you have issues, it qualifies you to be.
I was totally just joking around.
Yeah, no. I say, I have these issues too, but the good news is the growth process hits on those layers, right? Like
Hmm.
the
Oh yeah.
layers are deep, back to our childhood, back to the way we view our wife, the way we view women, the way we view sex, all of this stuff. I mean, let alone our insecurities, our all that. But then talk about a little bit of the maybe a little bit of that if you want, but then what's that growth process been like? And I say it because I think some guys are, like you said, okay, I'll be here January, and by February, I'll be done looking at porn. And some guys, that can happen, and then we don't ever see them again. And I think, oh, you're missing out on so much of those deeper layers. So that's a lot that I said, but just talk a bit about the deeper layers of growth, and that you've experienced via Beyond the Battle and via some of these other avenues, because I've seen it in you. I mean, you're a
Hmm.
totally different man today than you were when I met you 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. A number of people have said that to me, and I would say a lot of the guys that I meet that have been in these groups for a year or 2 years have come a long way. I didn't have friends that I could joke with genuinely and wholeheartedly for, I mean, other than just like fly by night friends,
Yeah,
but to have genuine friends that I can joke with or talk with.
it's
Um,
great.
I oftentimes laugh with my Beyond the Battle guys and kind of the jokes that we tell. And so I do think that that is one big difference. Is just having people, I mean, just being able to pick up the phone or text somebody and be like, man, I'm really struggling today, whatever the struggle is, you know? And I think for me, the lot my kids actually refer to me as the new dad or old dad, which
Wow.
at
Yeah.
first kind of was offensive to me. But to go at, to just to kind of go into what you had asked me, and I'll kind of compare it to we do trade shows. Our company, I work in sales, and so we have this little dog. He's about 11 pounds, and he'll sit on the table, and you will see these 6'2" biker dudes, tattoos, chains on their wallets, and they're like, oh, this doggy's so pretty. And you think that's so opposite what the world teaches us a man is supposed to be. Like a man is supposed to be like brass knuckled and able to, you know, you watch TV and there's like lots of guns and killing and muscles. And I think for me, part of my emotional underdevelopment was being able to see other men that were able to be vulnerable with each other, because I think that's one of the key, I'll call it a chain. I think that one of the key chains that chains us down as men is that we think that if we are to share the truth, we've all heard the saying, the truth will set you free. Because if you look at the emotional IQ scale, down at the bottom is depression, sadness, addiction. Way up at the top is courage, curiosity. And I know for me, those were things that didn't even have space in my life. And I know when I read your book, The Golden Haired Woman, it just resonates with me because at that, I think when you're in that emotionally underdeveloped stage, your mind and your eyes, because your eyes don't know the difference what you're looking at, only your brain does. And when you're looking at that golden haired woman in that lower IQ, that sort of just that, I just call it like rummaging around, like before I met guys I could tell the truth to, and before I started growing with my emotions, I actually, you look at that golden haired woman and your brain says, well, that's the happiness I need. That's the happiness I've got to have. But then the whole point behind the golden haired woman story is that it's not. So it doesn't at all mean I'm low on the IQ scale of emotions. I'm stupid. No, I'm not stupid. I'm very intelligent. But I think that developing those emotional, getting rid of some of those old emotions, kind of sweeping out the room and making room for those new emotions is so important. But I honestly don't know how anybody would ever do that unless they had a group like Beyond the Battle that they could come to and say to another man, my marriage is falling apart. And I know that, this thing that I keep going to night after night after night, or week after week, or month after month, it's not helping. And I know as the leader of this group, you have had the blessing of watching men come crawling to you. I'm one of them. You've had the blessing of watching men come crawling to your front door only to watch them, stand on their own 2 feet and become men again. And I think anybody who joins a group like this and is able to see that in themselves and other men, that's a huge gift in itself.
Yeah. Thanks, Nate. Yeah, and shout out to single guys too. I think the journey is different but similar, where we both walk with that same emptiness and are trying to fill it, in the same ways, and need the same sort of community and answers. Sometimes, and to find that wholeness. Sometimes marriage helps in the journey. Sometimes it makes it worse in the journey.
True.
Right. And
Yeah, very true.
we won't get into specifics of that, but just knowing, all the guys we're walking with. And so want to throw that out there. Yeah. Let me get you out of here on this. If guys listening, and I want to say this too, for listeners, for women, if you're struggling with pornography or unwanted sexual behavior, I would direct you over to sherecovery.com. Reach out to Crystal Renaud Day. I've interviewed her on my podcast before for similar types of community for women. But Nate, let me get you out of here on this. If guys are listening that have, trepidation, anxiety about signing up for a 7-week group, to go through the book, or let's say we have some guys listening that have gone through a 7-week group, they're inactive alumni, so to speak. So just so listeners know, after you finish the 7-week group, we invite you into a free alumni community. Right now we have 7 Zoom groups that meet throughout the week. We have 2 retreats a year. We have Slack, Marco Polo, and through that, like Nate said, you just generate a network of these friends and relationships you can reach out to really as often as you need to. So, Nate, guys are listening. I always tell people you can't do this alone. Satan's biggest lie is you can do it alone. Satan's whispering, yeah, right, that's good for Nate, but you got this. No. Like you're not like Nate. You can do it alone. Just what would you say to encourage someone maybe to break through that wall of anxiety, fear, just to sign up, or if they've been inactive for a long time, to come back to a group? What encouragement would you give them?
Sure. I think 2 things. Number one, which is kind of leads into number 2, to just keep in mind, this is not like the movie The Matrix where you take a pill and everything changes overnight. You have to remember what you're doing, the job that the God is trying to work in you. For me, it was 20 years of dysfunction, and then you join a group, and I'm saying this respectfully, you join a group of other men who are broken for 10 or 20 or 30 years, and we're all in this brokenness together. So I would say that as an encouragement. You're not joining a group of men who are all generals, and you're just this like little airman who's doing all the learning from all the sages. Like, you are in a group of men that genuinely know where you are coming from and that they want to help you. You got to leave your pride at the door, and you have to kind of eat the sandwich God is handing you. Like, look at the people in the Bible. God rarely changes his leaders in 1 minute. He takes years to polish us and to humble us. And at the place where I'm at in my marriage, that's the one thing I keep reminding myself over and over and over. Be humble. Don't lose your cool. Talk it out. Trust that God is working. And that's where the group comes in, because you're going to go to the men in your group, and the men in your group, they can't solve your problems, but they can hear your emotional concerns, and they can weigh in a healthy way. And I honestly, I don't see how anybody who's looking to free themselves from this horrible, terrible, smutty world of porn and sex is ever going to get clean or healthy without a group of men, just like Beyond the Battle. I mean, I personally don't see how anybody could ever do that.
Yeah. Same for me. That's why we started the alumni group. I mean, I needed it. I needed that type of community and leading groups like the 7-week groups on their own with me as the answer man wasn't cutting it. And I think that's why a lot of ministry leaders fall. I just did a blog post on that, that whole concept. That's why these groups exist. And I'm a peer among them, among the alumni. And I could give the same testimony. Yeah, it's been the thing that has kept me from my own moral failure, as we call it, amongst pastors and ministry leaders. It's what's kept me married. It's what's kept me from deep depression. I mean, yeah, it's God's doing a great thing. So listeners, we want to invite you in. Nate wants to invite you in to just hang out with us. Come join community. And it can be hard, get over the hump, and man, take that step. So I want to just close out by letting listeners know they can go to beyondthebattle.net. And what you'll find there is our 7-week groups that go through the book together. There's a fee for those. It's pretty affordable. We also have scholarships. And once you're done with your 7-week group with us online, I help lead those. We have leaders that lead those for the 7 weeks. When you're done there, we invite you into the alumni community that Nate has been talking about. You also can go through the book at your church. You can recruit some guys. Maybe you're in a men's group already in person at church. Just get the book. Every guy just needs a copy. The small group material is already inside for free, included. And then you can email us to hop into our alumni community when you're done. We'd love to have you. So, Nate, thank you so much. Any just kind of closing thoughts for listeners?
I think in closing, I appreciate you asking. I think that the one thing I want to say to anybody coming to a group like this is pray for your leaders, because without strong leadership, a group suffers. And so, I definitely, I belong to other men's groups, and I pray for the leaders. I mean, imagine being in a boxing ring and boxing one other man as opposed to boxing 30 other men. And so our leaders need prayer. And one thing I pray for Noah is that he starts using butter when he cooks his eggs. So we get personal in this group, and let me tell you, it's a freeing feeling. I love this guy.
Someday, Nate, I will not put butter on my eggs. So.
Well, thank you for having me. That's great.
Yeah, thanks for coming, giving your testimony. Thanks for being a guest on The Flip Side. And for listeners, I will see you next time on The Flip Side.
The Flip Side with Noah Filipiak is a Beyond Ministries production. Copyright Noah Filipiak. www.noahfilipiak.com. Theme music by Kyle Lake at K-Lake Music. Used with permission. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.
It's time to bring me closer. There's no purgatory, cause you're in or you're out. When you see him in the clouds, then you know it's going down. Raise them, raise them, raise them. They've been sleeping for some ages. Now all God's babies so confused by this hatred. Pulpit preachers shouldn't aim to be A-list. Money probably long, but short is what your days.